Hey friends, my name is Emelina. If you're new, welcome to I Am Woke. I want to do a quick live stream. I'm really loving these streams because I just don't have to think, I just show up based on an insight or an idea. So Drea, if you see this, this was sparked by your comment on the Valentine's video about like up-leveling in relationship. And I wanted to cover a little bit about what that looks like because I forget sometimes that I have so much experience here. So when you are in a romantic relationship with another spiritual human. Oh, actually, I didn't even do my standard intro. Hold on. Here we go. Welcome to I'm Woke. I'm Emelina. I'm a psychic medium, a spiritual high performance coach, a cosmic shaman. I do personal branding and life coaching. And I have a program called The Phoenix that I'm going to be dropping like in the next day or so. If you guys are interested in that or one-on-one coaching with me, I'll leave a link in the description below. Also, I have a free meditation for you guys that you can get in the link in the description below, as well for the Sacred Rainbow Flame of Creation, which is an incredible meditation to connect you to your own source consciousness, reestablish your source coding in your like 12-strand human DNA. So there's all of that. Okay, so let me backtrack and go back into the relationships here. So when you are in, we can call it relationship, you can call it marriage, you can call it, I don't know, a romantic entanglement. You can call it an LTR, like however you want to go about this. When you are a highly spiritual person, like you are in the middle of your awakening process, you're becoming more aware of your soul self, your authentic self, everything that you are. You're working through your traumas, your past belief systems, you know, that whole like package of the awakening process. And you're in relationship with another human. I guess what I wanted to cover on this mainly, and this is really cool, is that spirit keeps you up with each other. So generally speaking, I feel like, again, this is very general, there's typically one person doing aggressive spiritual work in most of these relationships. Maybe I just haven't encountered many where both are doing the active work, but it tends to be typical that one person is in pursuit of spiritual awakening. So then you probably wonder, like, how does the other person keep up, or how does this match if they're not doing the work? Well, here's the thing. When you are romantically entangled with someone, whether you're dating, whether you're married, you know, whatever it's going to be, your energy fields sync up and entangle with each other. So you are sharing soul current or soul frequency. Now, the energetics of the contracts of that are different if you're dating versus married. When you're married, there is an actual, like the entanglement is much more intense, which is why sometimes you'll hear, like I've had friends tell me when they get married, they're like, I just don't understand what happened spiritually. I'm really overwhelmed. I'm like, well, yeah, because the spiritual entanglement's just 10x. You just, when you get married, you take on the karma of the other person. You now have shared karma, shared wins, shared losses. So it's like where you had blank space in your psyche before, it like fills in with all this extra contractual baggage that you didn't know you had that was your partner's. That's part of like the awareness of marriage. I have not been married, so I have not personally sat with those contracts for myself. But I understand that that is like the contractual basis of the soul contracts at the marriage level. Now, where am I swimming with this? When you're in a romantic entanglement that's not married, but you're still in a long-term relationship, there are entanglements. You are sharing, let me think about how to word this. You're sharing soul contracts, but it's not like the marriage level. It's more consensual, participation based. So it's like whatever you put in is what you get back. Whatever you take or claim karmically within the union of the relationship between the two of you is what you claim. And you can let it go at any point if it's not yours officially. Whereas a marriage contract, like you're in. Like you are like responsible for the karma of the other person, whether or not you want to be. Like the consent is the arrangement of the actual marriage. So anyway, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Okay, so when it comes to these like long-term relationships, spirit tends to mold. It's almost like the two spiritual trajectories for each person independently is like molded together, and you're given a relationship energy that, regardless if it's marriage or dating, that is the co-energy between two people. And that co-energy works as a unit. It's the conglomerate of like all of the strengths and weaknesses of each person individually, both physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And the relationships are essentially given a set of spiritual guides. So we each have our guides independently, and then in relationship there is a co-set of spirit guides that are watching out for the relationship. So when you are in relationship and someone is doing aggressive spiritual work, aggressive personal growth work, the other person, as long as they're participating, just giving permission essentially through the cosmic like relationship energies, will glean the benefit of the work that the person that's actively doing the growth is doing. And let me think about how to explain this a little more mentally. I have a few things coming up here. So I'll just give the example. In my last relationship, I mean, I am an aggressive spiritualist. Like, there's no other way to say it. So, not to say that my past relationship that he wasn't spiritual, because he was, but it wasn't the way that I do things. By any means. Like, I was like lighting gasoline to everything spiritually and working through it in the most positive of ways. But when you're in relationship, in step and in sync, your guides will keep the other person up with you to some degree. And I think, why do I want to say this to you guys? I think I want to cover this because I feel like in so many relationships, there's one person doing really intensive work and they're wondering if they'll outwork the relationship, outgrow it, which of course is always a possibility. That's never going to be off the table. But I feel like I want to give you guys the permission to kind of relax into it and to feel safe in doing your spiritual work, because every night that you go to sleep, I remembered they would do this in my last relationship. Your guides are syncing up while you're sleeping between you and your partner, and they're sending the downloads that you worked actively through to the other person, and then bringing them into their energetic system, helping them to digest the new frequencies and new awareness of your spiritual development, to be able to wake up in a state that is more receptive to the new version of you when you wake up, essentially. It's not perfect. Like, they're not just gonna like change overnight. But they kind of can. What I will say as well, for those of you that I just remember, and I've spoken to so many people about this too, like where people are like, oh, I just need my partner to accept these parts of me, and I need my partner to do this work too. Like, I mean, maybe, but I really would just empower you to do your own work and trust that it's enough. I haven't been in a long-term relationship in a minute here, but when I was, what I will say is there was a point where I actively was like, I am no longer available to try to tweak, change, or control this person. And what I did instead, I hired 3 coaches that were all spiritual coaches and psychics, and we worked through my work together for a couple of years. And I literally was just like, you know, whatever bothers me in this person, I'm gonna sit and change myself. Because if it bothers me in them, probably there's something inside of me that's clinging or hanging on to that, or it's reflecting it to me in a way that I need to see that's almost a direct reflection. And I would work it through, and I would see quite literally the person in front of my eyes shift almost overnight, again and again and again, to the point where, like, years ago, if you had spoken to me when I had just started coaching, I would just tell people, like, don't worry about the other person in the relationship. You never have to worry about them, because I was actively working and changing the my own identity, my own personal identity, and I would watch it shift. I would watch this other person's reactions completely change where it made absolutely no sense. All I was doing was being unavailable for my own drama. All I was doing was being in a constant state of allowance. All I was doing was some serious self-acceptance work and acceptance of whatever was being shown to me in the other human. Like, I literally would be like, okay, oh, all right, like, that's okay. Whatever that is okay. And by doing that, I changed myself, what I became available for, and then the other person changed in front of my eyes, which is a really, really magical process, by the way. Something Abraham Hicks, I think, says as well is like, when you are able to see the light or the potential in the other person, even amidst their shadows, you kind of pull that facet forward, or that frequency forward. Your expectations of people that are closest to you, it doesn't override their free will, it doesn't override their expressions, but if you expect somebody to act in a very disrespectful way over and over and over and over and over again, and you don't leave room for yourself to assume the best, you're drawing that expression out of that person. And I also want to put a caveat in that, because I don't want you to feel like you're taking over responsibility for what people do or say around you, because it's not always the case. This message is going to be specifically for the person that needs to hear it right now, in the way that I needed to hear that 3 or 4 years ago. And then something else I want to mention too is, and this is especially with deep soulmate relationships, is that they reflect us back to us. It's not always a direct reflection, but something that I have sat with a lot in review of my past relationships is like, if it's not a direct reflection, what are they holding that's a part of me or my vast soul experience that I haven't personally claimed? And I will say that I have been in relationship with people that have much stronger shadows than me. A lot of them, even if we look at family relationship, some of my friendships, you know, the deep soul contracts for me have been like, I'm holding so much light that in order to balance that, the other person, you know, in this scenario, and this isn't just one person for me, I'm thinking of a few, like, has had to hold a certain amount of shadow. And it's not to say that I don't have shadow. That shadow is more of a reflection of like the multi-dimensional self version of me, where I know I'm going so esoteric right now. I'm like, oh shoot, can I ground this more mentally? Thanks for tracking through with this with me and watching. As always, you know, if it's not a direct reflection, like sometimes I've had very deep soulmate relationships in front of me where I wondered, is my shadow that dark and that deep? But I don't feel like that's a part of me right now. But when you look at the full multi-dimensional experience, it's like the yin yang symbol. It's like they're holding the darker shadow aspects of what it is to be a complete thing, like a complete unit. When you look at the yin yang, it's the black with the white dot and the white with the black dot. Like, the shadow can't escape the light. They both have to have presence. And sometimes when we're in soul contracts, the other person might be holding a lot more shadow to balance the amount of your light. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, there's a lot of gray in this conversation. I'm almost afraid to be here online. I'm like, oh, between these polarities, I'm not saying anything toxic is great. I would walk away from anything toxic or abusive. I'm just kind of bringing light to the energetic sides of some of these contracts. You know, when I'm sitting in contemplation, I'm like, I'll channel with my guides and be like, oh, I wonder, like, why was that like that? Why were these past relationships? Why do I tend to gravitate towards people with such intense shadows? But my light is so intense, and I've chosen not to occupy those shadows in this lifetime in the way that these people around me have. So it's almost like the reflection is that I just have to see it so that it's not in me, it's outside of me. If that makes sense? I don't know. This is a good little rant I'm going on here. And then I want to swing back. So into when you're in relationship with another human and you're doing lots of aggressive spiritual work, working on yourself, they are kept up. Literally, your guides will download through to each other and exchange notes every single evening while you sleep astrally. Regardless of whether or not you're sleeping in bed together or you're in separate places, there's still a download. And frequently, our guides will take us to sacred astral retreats together, like you in your relationship, and you guys will sync up at a sacred astral retreat, which are like, how do I describe this? They're like oasis situations or like retreats for the soul. They're also called Ascension seats. They're all over the universe, and there's tons and tons of them on Earth as well. And that's where we get to like download access to more cosmic data, more cosmic knowledge, get DNA upgrades, maybe clean some of the karma between the contracts and the relationship and stuff like that. But let me tap into my channel and see if there's anything else that I feel like needs to be said in this very impromptu discussion. They're telling me it's just a reminder. This is only for those who this resonates with. This is kind of more of a specific message for a specific person that needs to hear this in a specific way. This is not an everyone, everywhere message. Only take what resonates, leave the rest. This is me just sharing some of my experience in some of the relationship energies, because I'm seeing some people around me that might need the experience. Like it might just be good to have a shared experience and understand from someone that can explain some of the soul level contracts. What else, you guys? Anything else? I want to tie this together by saying that when you're in relationship, whether or not you are in relationship with someone else right now in a long-term commitment, you know, a lot of times our society paints it like this other person is our opposite, or like opposites attract, or this idea of a really strong, like, opposite polarity that might, you know, it lends itself like where you might believe that you have to have someone very different and opposite to you in order to be attracted to them. And although that could be the case, and that is an easy way to create magnetism and polarity, it doesn't have to be. And they're reminding me right now that those of you in relationship can ask for this to be massaged and finessed into the energetic contracts. Those of you not in relationship yet, you can start to ask for this new paradigm where you're actually shown more similarities than you are differences, and that the attraction is based in the core rooted desire of wanting the other person because you want them, not because you feel like you need the magnetism from them of the opposite in order to create the magnetic charge, in order to create that soul spark charge. I guess that's what they're showing to me. There's two different types of ignition in polarity. There's the spark, the soul spark, the passion, the power that's generated from opposites, like light and dark. Polar opposites. You guys have heard this. I feel like this is like our parents' generation. This is like polar opposites attract. Then there's the ignition of passion that's developed from desire. That is literally like, I want this person, like from a healthy place. I want you. I want that. I want those expressions. I desire. And that desire doesn't come from the automatic, like, they're showing me like this torque, almost like a mechanical torque that comes from opposites. That passion is a self-generated heat that needs to be sustained by the self through continual desire. The torque version is easier, and that's why so many people fall into that. It's a very primal pattern. The desire pattern means you have to be so in tune with your heart and in tune with your desires that you know how to create that attraction, and that you can create that polarity from the place of not having to have conflict, create it for you. They're showing me like a car engine, but I don't know that I can describe oh, here we go. Okay, so they're showing it to me in terms of heat. So to have intense attraction, you need polarity. To have polarity in relationship, you have to create heat. To create heat, there are a couple of ways. You can create heat by taking gasoline, pouring it all over your apartment and lighting a match between the two of you, which is going to be conflict, okay? It's why so many couples get in heated arguments, big conflicts, anything conflict oriented. And then there's a lot of passion or sexual desire birthed out of the conflict. That shit's not the healthiest. Now, there's another way of creating heat, which is they're showing me like putting down stones, creating a fire pit, getting some logs, throwing the logs in. This is all intention. It's creating the fire, the passion from the place of intention. You know, putting the logs in, putting coals in, getting some fire starters, calling up your lover, going, hey, you want to come over? Like, why don't you bring some firewood? Like, it's like a co-created, intentional heat that is birthed from desire. And in order to do that, you have to know who you are. You have to know what you're not. You have to know and understand your preferences. And I do say preference. What do I like better, this or this? What's slightly better, this or this? What feels better, this conversation or this conversation? What touch feels better, this touch or this touch? What feels better? What do I like a little bit more? And then being able to communicate those preferences. And well, knowing them internally, having the preference, and then being able to communicate that preference with the other person, and be in a relationship with a similar type of person that wants to communicate with you, that wants to understand you, that wants to understand themselves, and understands the spirit of collaboration, where more is done through teamwork, right? Where more is done through the spirit of collaboration, the spirit of communication, rather than destruction. That's a more conscious relationship. It's a more conscious relationship dynamic experience. But it creates a sustainable fire that doesn't burn. It doesn't hurt anyone. And what's required is conscious, attentive awareness to keeping the fire burning, which is constant intention, constant understanding and pursuit of your desires, communication, collaboration, and unconditional love, as well as speaking your truth and hearing someone else's truth in the space of unconditional love. That's what keeps that fire and passion burning. That's what keeps that healthy. And when you do that, they're actually showing me the energetics behind the relationship, if both parties are participating in this way, is it's like they're showing me like a ball going back and forth, where you're each actually just equally trading different ascension codes and codes of awareness very smoothly and very fluidly, so that you're both able to remain in union with each other, keep up the pace with each other, and be kept up by God. And wherever by source, wherever there's an inconsistency or an incongruency, spirit will actually cover it between each party because of the collaborative desire-based contracts or desire-based agreements. I hope that makes sense. It's like a really interesting channel. I didn't think I was going to think about this stuff today. I think that's all I got for this. So I hope this is helpful in some way or another. This is me just like spitting off live on my little channel here around soul contracts, around relationships where one partner is spiritual. In the case that I was describing, all this like passion based, like that's both partners are spiritual. And by spiritual, one might look much more spiritual than the other. I see that a lot in people, and it doesn't detract from the relationships at all. It's just like one might look more psychic and the other one is just being like psychic in the world, but maybe they don't identify with being psychic or spiritually evolved in that way. They're just like more gut based. They just say what comes out of them. Maybe they don't identify with channeling, but they are so rooted in who they are and so secure in who they are that spirit moves straight through them because they're not blocking their channel. So that's another way of looking at that. I see a lot of like very good, very strong relationships that fall into that territory where there's like one more 5D person and one more 3D person that are each kind of holding those grids for each other. So the 5D person is our more like spiritual, etheric person, and they are holding more of the cosmic data. And then there's like the human, the more 3D person in the relationship occupying that role that's holding the human ascension. And then they're like shared across the board. Anyway, just more food for thought. Feel free to sit with that. Take what resonates, leave the rest. If you enjoyed this, thank you for watching. And if you did, leave me a comment. I'd love to know any questions you might have, any curiosities, anything that resonated. And remember to like this video, tap the subscribe button if you are new to my channel. And if you like some of what I'm talking about or you want to work with me in some way and my energy resonates with you, I'll leave some links in the description below on a number of ways you can work with me, some online programs I've got and stuff like that. So I hope this is helpful. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a beautiful week. All right, peace.